Okay. All right, AFTERSHOCKS TV, Matt and Chris back with you guys for another great episode, and we do indeed got a great one today, folks. From Metallic Hardcore Heavyweights HATEBREED, we've got Mr. Frank Novinec joining us today. What's going on, Frank? How are you, man?
How you guys doing?
Good, doing great, man. Doing great. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. So yeah, let's get to it, man. I mean, you guys just dropped a live video for the track Instinctive Slaughterlust. It's off the band's 2020 release, Weight of the False Self. And this video features some great footage from your guys' tour, the metal tour of the year that you did last summer with Megadeth, Lamb of God, and Trivium. And, you know, I mean, best part of the video, just hands down, is when that older guy is in there, the guy with the beard and the long hair, and he slams. I think it looks like he was drinking Fireball or something. I think it was Fireball whiskey.
Yeah, he looks like Herbie from, what's that band? What the hell's the band called? I can't think of it now. These things for... God, we were on a Warped Tour with them. What the hell's the name of this band? He's gonna kill me for this. Now I look just like him. Anyway.
Oh, man.
You'll remember as soon as we hang up.
No, I know.
But yeah, I love that, man. He just slams that Fireball whiskey, whatever it was. He just starts going nuts, man. That shit was funny. But how did that footage? Who got that footage? Was it just at one of the shows and someone just kind of sent it into you guys, or?
No, we had a guy that was out with he was out with the tour, and our original plan was to bring out a video guy. You know, that was our original plan, was to have our guy Paul come out, and he was going to come out. Can you turn those lights on, please? I got some more light in here. Thank you. Our guy Paul was going to come out and do some footage, but you know, it was so hard to do the tour with, say, with all the COVID protocols. You know what I mean? Sure, with everything in place, all the rules we had to abide by, and it was just didn't work with bringing him out. So you know, we had Jared, who was out with the tour. We just approached him about starting to film some of the just footage from every night that we were out there that he could. You know, there was a lot of technicalities with the venue and paying money and all that. So he grabbed the footage where he could, and we were able to, you know, make a proper video for that song. Because now there are two videos for the song. I shouldn't say proper, because there's two proper videos for that song now. But it kind of breeds, you know, it's tough making a record during a pandemic when you can't go out and support the album. So this kind of just breathes some air and ties people breathes some air into the balloon, excuse me, and ties people over until we're able to come back and play shows and do things again. And it also gives people a glimpse of what it was like, the people that didn't make that tour, to see the footage from the shows, to see how it went off without a hitch. And really, I mean, to see by the time we hit the road again, in 2.5 year span, it's the only tour we will have done. Right. So it gives people, it tides them over, you know, until we're able to tour again, you know.
Sure.
And also, you know, it breathes a little bit of life into the album as well too. So
absolutely, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Speaking of tour, I mean, you guys are set, you know, to do a headlining tour this spring. I saw with Parkway Drive, Black Dahlia Murder, and Stick to Your Guns. And you know, what's kind of great, I think, about you guys being with HATEBREED is that you guys get to go on tour. You get to open for, you know, a legendary band like Megadeth, one of obviously the all-time legendary metal bands that helped catapult this thing. And then you get to go and headline a tour with bands that you guys influenced and be the ones who sort of captained that tour ship. And of course, yeah, both situations are great, man. And, you know, when, you know, every metal musician, something obviously every metal musician, I'm sure, dreams of. But for you personally, I mean, which one of those situations is, I guess, more, I don't know, say rewarding or gratifying, but, you know, is it more, I guess, rewarding playing with and opening for a band like that, like a Megadeth, or is it being the legendary band that other bands are opening for, who you guys have influenced?
Well, we're opening for Parkway. We're
really? Not okay. Really?
Yeah. I mean, Parkway Drive is massive. If you follow the metal scene, you'll know that they're massive. I mean, they fill 2,000, 3,000 people venues. You know what I mean? The tour that we had booked with them for the Europe and the UK, the show was with them headlining was at Wembley Arena.
Oh, damn!
That band is massive. Way bigger.
I mean, I knew they were big, but I didn't.
Oh yeah, way bigger than we are at the moment. Anyway, so you know, it's nice that, but we're a band that influenced them. So it's nice for them to return the favor. This is the same thing we do. Like, you know what I mean? Like a band like Agnostic Front, take for example. They're a band that influenced us, all of us, you know, in all of our bands that we've been in, and then to be able to go take them out on tour and have them support us, it's the same thing. It's like a good karma thing, you know. So now Parkway Drive, who's younger than us, a band that we've influenced, are taking us out on the road because they became this big successful band. I mean, their whole show's full pyro, and I'm looking forward to it because this is a rescheduled thing, like many of the tours out there. So, to be honest with you, I'm enjoying doing the supporting tours because we're always headlining. Always, we don't get the support tours a lot. So if we're getting a support tour, that means there's going to be way more people there than if we were headlining. There's also going to be people there that aren't there to see HATEBREED. So in order to help the band grow, we need to play in front of these audiences. I mean, when we did the Megadeth Lamb of God tour, half the people there that was their first time seeing or hearing our band, even though we've been around 26, 27 years.
Right.
So to be able to still play in front of people this late in the career and this many records out and have gained new fans is more important to me than anything else that the band could be doing.
Okay. Oh, very cool. Okay. Yes.
And especially a band like Parkway Drive because their fans are younger. And it helps to grab the younger fans because our fans are my age, 50, and and people are dying or not going to shows anymore, or their grandparents and shit. So it's important to grab the young kids as well.
Yeah. Right. No, absolutely. Good point, man. No doubt. Well, let's talk about a little bit about Weight of the False Self. I mean, you know, it's the band's 8th record. I came out last year, a little over a year ago. Just another relentless, you know, combo of hardcore metal. It's vintage HATEBREED. It's a great record. And you know, that's one of the things I just always loved about HATEBREED, man, is your guys' consistency. I mean, you know what you're going to get each time a new record comes out. I mean, there might be a couple of twists here and there, but all in all, you know what you're going to get, you know, and with your guitar playing, especially in my opinion, I mean, you know, you're one of the best that I think, no doubt, is able to blend metal and hardcore riffs together in such a natural, fitting way. You know, it's not forced. I mean, there's very few songs where I feel, you know, there's a song that's one or the other, like a pure metal song or metal hardcore. It's always such a natural, you know, mutual, nice blend of the both styles. So when you're writing, if a song is, say, it's got like a real metallic base, do you throw in, say, a hardcore riff or a breakdown intentionally to combine the sounds and elements, or is it just sort of what you do naturally?
Jamie and Chris are writing all the music, and they always have been since day one. I mean, that's the formula for HATEBREED. So Jamie, the singer, and the bass player are the ones who write all the music for the band. So, you know, that's a formula that you don't want to mess with. Now, in my prior bands, Integrity, Ringworm, I was writing a lot of the material. With Ringworm, the bulk of the material. But, you know, that style is completely different than what we're doing in HATEBREED. So I think it would be unfair to the fans, and it would be just too challenging for me to write that style. You know, I have a riff on the self-titled album, but really that's the extent of it. So even Wayne coming back into the band, and Sean, who was in the band for years, didn't really write any music for the band either. It's always been Chris and Jamie since day one.
Sure.
So with that being said, I mean, you know, it depends on who you talk to. Some people think our music sounds different than it did on the last record and the last record and the last record. You know what I mean? Certainly if you listen to the first record till now, it's going to sound different. You know what I mean, maybe to a normal person that this music's all screaming and yelling anyway. But over time, you know, production alone is going to change that. And you evolve, you know what I mean? It's no secret that HATEBREED is, since the beginning, came from the basements of America and broke into the metal scene.
Right.
You know, whether it was Jamie hosting Headbangers Ball and getting the band played on there, or HATEBREED going out with Slipknot early on, or the Ozfests that we've done, which is, to my knowledge, more than any band besides Ozzy and Zach. All these things that help break HATEBREED into the metal scene. You know, now when you make a record, you've got a lot of people to make happy. You know, you've got your hardcore and your metal audiences, some even radio rock bands, like people that like Five Finger Death Punch and Disturbed, they love HATEBREED too. But we might be the most extreme that they that might be as extreme where they go. And then there's other people where you know, some people are like, HATEBREED, that's my cutoff for
right
mainstream. I go, you know, it's a double-edged sword. It's nice to be a fish in both ponds. You know what I mean? Good problem to have, but
sure.
you know, these are all things you have to keep in mind when you're writing and making a record. That and you know, you have to make it still sound like HATEBREED at the end of the day too.
Sure. How much of that though do you think is an actual thought versus going the other way and just we're not going to worry about what people think, we're just going to write HATEBREED and it becomes what it becomes?
I think Jamie, speaking for Jamie, he listens to what people say. He takes the input from the fans, and you know what I mean. We also, you know, it's hard not to picture in your mind when you're making a part of at least one song on the record of a European festival of 75,000 people jumping up and down. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So there's plenty of things to consider when you're making a record. For sure. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that the record's been out for a year because we haven't done nothing with it. We've done one support tour and that's it. It kind of sucks. You know, I was bummed the other day when I saw that it was the 1 year anniversary. I'm like, we've done nothing, you know? Normally we've gone all over the globe on a record. You know, we've gone over to Europe. We've done this a few times, done the States a couple times, maybe Canada, and who knows, South America, Australia, you never know. But I mean, as far as like supporting the record and touring, we haven't done anything.
Sure.
I was gonna say I was a little depressed when I heard it was out a year. Like, holy crap!
Sure.
Like we're living in the twilight zone, you know.
So where does that leave you at now? Do you write the last one, even though it's a great record? I think it's a great record, but do you write it off as a lost record because of COVID and start writing something now for next year, or do you still try to milk something out of it even though it's over a year old?
I mean, fortunately for us, Kerry King said it best. We're legacy bands. We're living off our legacy. You know, we're living off the old catalog. But for us, with the Spotify and all that stuff, you know, looking down the barrel of today, which came off the last record, is the most downloaded song or streamed song by far in our catalog.
Sure,
which is really great. So you start thinking about things like that, and you know, we've talked about writing and recording, but also at the same time, let's see what happens this summer. Let's see what happens on the Parkway Drive tour. You know, not for nothing, we put a record out every 3 years.
Right. True.
So we still got 2 years to go.
Right.
Judging by that, time period that we're, you know, HATEBREED squeezes one out every 3 or 4 years. So it's still fresh, but you know, it's bad when you can't write out of the, you know, it's bad when you can't tour right before it's coming out and right after it came out, and here we are a year, you know, like I said, it's a year later. So it's tough.
Sure. No question. Well, Frank, I want to dovetail back to the last tour that you guys did do, the Megadeth tour, because you mentioned about COVID and whatnot, and it obviously changes who comes, how they come, who can come, et cetera, et cetera. What did it change for you guys? I know we've interviewed several bands that have said that for the first time ever, it felt very much like a business instead of, you know, it felt like work instead of playing because of all the rules and stipulations, you know, that are designed to keep everybody safe. So for you, did it feel very businessy, or did it feel like business as usual, or how did it feel to you touring through COVID?
I mean, man, there's so many aspects of it, I tell you. First of all, being on stage after the longest break in my musical career. I mean, the first shows I really played out were like in 1989 with Ringworm, I think. So that's the longest I've been away from the stage in my career. So that was weird. For us to come back out of not playing and play amphitheaters at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, that were half full, because we're the first of 4 bands, that was weird too. Because, you know, we're a club band. So to be playing in an amphitheater at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, we're usually not going on stage till at least 10 o'clock at night. We were done at 6:30 every night. Done.
Right.
That was strange. And it was nice that by the time we were done, the place was almost full every night. I mean, you could see in the footage of the video. The crowds are massive for us, and we were first to 4.
Right.
That was weird. There was just, you know, I because it was a Live Nation thing and it was a big, huge tour, and if the shows weren't in an amphitheater, they were in an NBA arena. That made it seem like it was, you know, businessy.
Okay.
It's us playing the House of Blues or something, you know what I mean? So, but it was very locked down, very strict, very, look, we had to have masks on unless we were on stage.
Yeah, shit.
In our dressing room or in our tour bus. Now, mind you, 90% of these shows were outside. So it was like masks on outside. No guests backstage the whole tour unless they're family members. Family members show up with the negative COVID test if they do come out. You can have guests come to the show, but you're not allowed. They're not allowed backstage, and you're not allowed to go out in the crowd and see them. A lot of stuff. Very strict. But if you look at the tour, it went the whole 6 weeks, and we didn't cancel any shows. The only shows that got blown out were Canada at the end, you know, and that was some other crap.
Right.
So, and that was just 3 shows. So it went the distance. Now, how many of these other tours didn't go the distance, or shows got postponed, or somebody flew out to fill in for somebody? Nobody in any of the bands got sick. Not anybody. Not any band members had COVID. The whole tour. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So, say what you want. We made it happen. Did I see guys in other bands on the tour walking around with 2 mats on outside? Yep. Did I go see Kiss when I went home and see 500 people backstage at their shows? Yep, I did, and couldn't believe it. You know, and I know that's a touchy subject with the Rolling Stone stuff and the death of Fran, but I couldn't believe seeing all those people backstage at their concerts, knowing that they would allow that, but Megadeth and Lamb of God wouldn't allow that, you know? So it's crazy because every tour is different. You know, when you hear about one of these tours going down and it getting sick, you can only think about what was going on, what their protocols were, and how people were abiding by them. I can only speak for what we did. And the concert that the 3 Kiss concerts that I went to 3 nights in a row, 2 in Florida and 1 in Tampa after I got home. And those were night and day compared to how locked down the show, the backstage areas were and all that.
Sure.
So who knows? And then, you know, another thing about this tour going forward and that we're talking about in May, it's like this is a rescheduled thing. Now, how many tours this month have gotten canceled?
Yeah.
That were supposed to happen in a couple months. You know what I mean? So we have to wonder about look, I want to go on tour. We're supposed to go on tour, but it wouldn't surprise me if some other dumb variant comes along and screws everything up. I mean, I'm watching NBA, and after the Toronto Raptors game, highlights come on, and there's not one damn person in the crowd because they're not allowed to do anything there in Canada. They're locked down again. Jeez. You know, and that's now. Now. And we're almost in February, so who knows?
Yeah. It's fucking nuts, man. 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and here we are 2 years later. But anyway, man, we'll
exactly.
You know, yeah, exactly. But anyway. Well, Frank, man, I haven't researched this, in strong detail, but I think I have a good enough knowledge of hardcore history to say that you're probably, one of the only guys who's ever played with a big time, legendary type of hardcore band in each geographical region in the U.S. Obviously, on the East Coast with HATEBREED, Midwest, where you're from, Integrity Ringworm, and of course on the West Coast with Terror. And not just you didn't just tour with them; you actually played, on these records too. So, I mean, I'm not really asking you which one is better or everything, because of course you're going to pick, your hometown, of course. But from your experiences, I mean, you don't have to elaborate too much, but what are the differences between, and you're just, you could just briefly say little things about what each, I guess, scene or location. I mean, is it all kind of generally the same in your opinion, or are there differences in the different locations?
Well, I never lived in any of those places. I only lived in Cleveland, and that was it. And when I joined HATEBREED, I was in Cleveland, and I stayed in Cleveland until I moved to Florida. I joined HATEBREED in 2006, and I moved to Florida the second time around in 2008, and I've been down here since 2008.
Okay.
I never moved to LA. I never moved to Connecticut. Fortunately, with technology, we don't have to do that. You have things like FaceTime and Skype and, you know, such short breaks in between tours that you don't even need to rehearse. So, but it's funny there, I say, and then there were two, because Matt, our drummer, he's in Poughkeepsie, New York. He's always been up there. So he was always like an hour and a half away from Connecticut. So when I joined, obviously I was an out-of-stater. Now Wayne has just moved to San Francisco with his girlfriend. So now you've only got Chris and Jamie left in Connecticut.
Okay.
So two, you know, we're spread out: Florida, New York, Connecticut, California right now. But you know, I've been to all 50 states. I've been all over the world. I mean, you know, every place is different. Every place is different for sure. You know, Connecticut's funny. You're like, when you go to Connecticut, you're like, I'm going to Connecticut. When you go to Cleveland, you're like, I'm going to Cleveland. You don't say I'm going to Ohio. I'm going to Cleveland. But Connecticut, the people drive all over the whole goddamn state because it's, you know, that's what they do. So it's strange like that, you know. And obviously, shit. I mean, L.A. You'll play a show in L.A. and then you'll play a show an hour south in Orange County, and it's two completely different crowds and not one person from both nights. It's so, you know, it's. Speaking upon those three places, you know, they're different. You know, maybe the kids aren't different, or their fans or whatever you want to call them, compared to Europe or South America or something like that. But you know, it's definitely different. You know, coming up in the hardcore music, Cleveland hardcore had its own sound. California certainly had its own sound, and New York had its own sound for sure. Connecticut too. So you know, there's styles from all these places. And you know, Connecticut, it's funny, Connecticut and Cleveland, you know, they're not really known for huge bands. Cleveland, I mean, Cleveland's known as a music town. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's there. The phrase rock and roll was coined in Cleveland, you know, by a disc jockey back in the day. And that's why the Rock Hall is there. But and a lot of bands broke there. Rush, Bob Seger, all these bands, Kiss, they broke in Cleveland and Detroit. But unlike Detroit, Cleveland never had any of the big name bands ever. I mean, the Dead Boys, you're digging with Devo, Michael Stanley, but I mean, when you start talking about heavier music, Mushroom Head, but that's it. It's not like Detroit where you've got Alice Cooper and Iggy Pop and Ted Nugent and all these huge, and Motown and all this stuff. So it's kind of strange like that. But it's definitely a music town, and it's definitely a blue collar town and a working class town, and it's how I got into music at such an early age, and it's how I am where I am today.
Sure. Well, a big part of that, though, too, for you was that you were in the core bands of that scene at that time. I mean, Ringworm, especially. Jesus Christ, dude. You know, you're very much downplaying the importance of Ringworm in this town. I mean, come on, man.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, I mean, those bands in that scene, but I'm talking about like the big, huge rock bands that came before all that stuff. Cleveland's not known for any of those bands. I mean, when you start talking about these other cities, you know, look at Detroit. They have Bob Seger, Alice Cooper, the list goes on. We never had any of that, but we always had the radio station. We always had the venues. We always had the bands coming through town. And that's what got me into all that. You know, I got into music like that when I was 5. I had a record collection when I was 5. I was dancing in my diapers of Smoke on the Water in March of '72 when that record came out, according to my father. So it's always been there. But, you know, going forward to Ringworm and Integrity and all those bands I played in, you know, that's the connection we made with HATEBREED early on. You know, when I was in Integrity in 1995, we made a record with HATEBREED. One side's HATEBREED, the other side's Integrity. And they just were starting. This was one of their first releases. They were a brand new band. And we're like, who are these kids from Connecticut calling us? HATEBREED. Right. You know, and here, however many years later, HATEBREED has blown up and I'm in the band. But we made records, and I have that connection with them since back then. You know, they would sleep on my floor when they came through town. You know, I was super tight with these guys. Jamie and Sean are two of my best friends. So, you know, before the tour bus, before the Grammy nomination and all that, they would sleep, you know, play Cleveland, sleep on my floor, and off to the next city.
Right. Sure. Frank, I'm just curious. There's a right now, you know, kind of at least here in the States, there is a big, probably the biggest movement since the 90s of hardcore, newer hardcore bands. There's a real resurgence of it. And we talked to tons of these bands, and they all reference Hatebreed. They all reference Hatebreed and Agnostic Front as the Mount Rushmores of the scene. I'm curious what you think from the top of Mount Rushmore when you see these new bands. Do you look at them and think that they have the spirit of the original hardcore? Do you think it's not the same? I mean, how do you look at it and feel? Or do you even pay attention to it?
Now, what bands are we talking about? Can you care to drop any names?
Gloves Off is one just off the top of my head. Matt, name a few, because Matt's way more in than I am.
Of the newer hardcore bands?
Yeah, the newer hardcore bands.
Well, like I said, we've been doing a lot of bands like on Upstate Records, Bushido Code and Gloves Off. Bushido. And there's Knocked Loose. Obviously, that's a big, one that's big new one. I mean, it's a lot different. I mean, I think it's a lot different. I mean, just because I'm an old school hardcore guy myself, but there's definitely a different. I mean, there's a lot of the metalcore sort of seeped in a lot with the hardcore now. It's very rare. I mean, you get, I think, that classic New York hardcore Agnostic Front sound anymore. It's more along the lines of the metalcore that I think came out around the mid 2000s. That's influencing
the tune down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I laugh because to me, what people call hardcore, like, listen, hardcore, when I was growing up, hardcore was Raw Power and Negative Approach and the Necros and what other bands were that? You know what I mean? Corrosion of Conformity. These were hardcore bands.
Yeah.
Before Corrosion of Conformity became a rock band.
The hardcore punk stuff.
There was no tuning the guitar down. There was no double bass drums. There was no growling vocals, and there was no breakdown of heavy riffs. Do you know what I mean? There was none of that. None of that stuff.
It was just straight fast.
So to me, that's what hardcore is. But hardcore over the years has became metal. Because it crossed with metal. It crossed with the metal scenes, and a lot of bands early on did that. Agnostic Front. On their second and third records, Cro-Mags on their second record, bands like the Crumbsuckers, they had dudes with long hair in the band. Even Agnostic Front had dudes with long hair in the band. Roger had long hair. So it's always been crossed with metal. And throughout the years, I think once death metal hit, and it was the early 90s, and Obituary and the whole first wave of Earache, I think a lot of that stuff started influencing hardcore. It certainly influences Hatebreed sound. Hatebreed is Bolt Thrower and Cro-Mags mixed to a T. You know what I mean? Right. But it's funny because Ringworm is really Morbid Angel and Napalm Death mixed with Youth of Today. And here's these hardcore bands mixing with these death metal bands, and they put Ringworm and Hatebreed don't sound anything alike. Ringworm is tuned up and has blast beats, and Hatebreed is tuned down and has breakdowns and all that shit. But we're both influenced by hardcore and death metal and grindcore. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
So from there, it's only gotten more extreme, more heavy. Bands are tuning down to Z. The strings are like spaghetti on the guitar. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's funny to me. I'm old school. Like, give me Keith Richards. He plays. I see these bands with 7-8 strings on their guitar, and I'm like, what's that for? I was like, he has 5 strings on his guitar. Do you know what I mean? So, but and that's how things have evolved. And I think that the hardcore scene, it polices itself in many ways. It polices itself in bands staying true to, the original codes and sounds and lifestyles of the scene. So, to these bands that are around, if they know about Hatebreed and Terror and all these bands, then chances are that they know what's up. You know what I mean? They're not just out there to make a buck or try to sure. You know what I mean? Their hearts got to be in it if they know about bands from the hardcore scene, because the hardcore scene, it's gritty, it's grimy, there's no money in it. You know what I mean? And it's DIY. It's all of those things.
Sure.
So if there's bands there that are and the kids and the fans know, you're not going to fool them. You can't fool it. Like, and one thing Henry Rollins says, you'll never fool an audience. You're not going to fool the hardcore audience if you're just some kids that nobody's ever seen around or heard of, and all of a sudden you're hardcore. It's like, wait, who are these kids? Who are these dudes? It's fake.
The one band that's drawing a lot of ire these days, whether they're hardcore or not, is the band Turnstile. What about what do you think about them?
I think Turnstile, to me, is those guys in that band, those kids. I love all of them. They're great dudes. We've done shows with them, and you know, but every now and again, you get a band from the scene that's a little different. They're doing something a little different. It reminds me of when the Gorilla Biscuit Start Today record came out. It was a lot more melodic than a lot of the stuff that was coming out then, but it still was hardcore. And goddamn, when they played those songs, everyone in the whole place is singing the words to every song. You don't even need the singing. You don't even need the vocalists and that's what Turnstile is. It's just a modern day version of like a Quicksand or Gorilla Biscuits. It's super popular. It's super melodic, so a lot of people can latch onto it. A lot of people that listen to all different kinds of music can latch onto that. You know, it's expanding outside of the hardcore scene. And they're one of those bands. We'll go watch the videos of them playing any of these shows in the last however few years, and the whole place is singing every word, and it's super cool because it's different. You know, you're doing something different, but your heart's still there. And to me, I look, a lot of people are purists. Once a band gets too big and they tour with this band, I don't like them anymore. Well, that's nonsense, because if the band themselves haven't changed and the music hasn't changed, let them go play to bigger audiences. Let them go show somebody who thinks Five Finger Death Punch is the baddest shit around, and let them go become a Hatebreed fan, because they're only going to go keep digging and digging until they find bands that you guys are talking about, until they find the VFW shows and all that. Nobody's born and knows about this stuff. You have to go find it from somewhere. Right. It doesn't matter what kind of music you're into. So when people try to shun people or bands for getting big and doing those kind of shows, it really, at the end of the day, it only helps bring more people into the scene and keep it going.
Right. It certainly does.
You know what I mean? There was a point when I listened to Wasp and I thought it was the gnarliest shit out. And it was 1980 and it was 1984. You know what I mean? And in 1985 and 1986 rolled around, I'm listening to Slayer, Venom, and Merciful Fate. And then from that, I found out about Agnostic Front. And then from that, I found out about Warzone. And from all that, I'm in Hatebreed. You know what I mean? There's a perfect example.
Sure. It certainly is, man. Well, Frank, obviously, man, Hatebreed is slowly getting ready to, knock wood, get on tour again. Tour dates are out there now. I believe they start in May. Is when the tour kicks off, correct?
To my knowledge.
I'll tell you where to be, you'll be there, right?
Well, it's funny. Like, somebody messaged me and was like, "Are you going to Welcome to Rockville?" I said, "No." They said, "Why?" And it was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he already knew that I wasn't going. I was like, "Why is he asking me again?" "No, I'm not going." I said, "It's not my thing. I need to go see." He's like, "But Kiss is playing." I said, "Yeah, well, I need to see Kiss and Kiss environment, not a bunch of people that might not all care about Kiss. I need 75% of the crowd in Kiss shirts and the other 25% in Kiss makeup. It has to be Kiss."
Right.
So I go, it's just not my thing to come home from a tour or be on tour and go be in the field for 3 days. You know what I mean? Right. And he goes, "Well, it says here you're playing." I said, "What? What are you talking about?" And sure as shit, there it was. We were playing. So then it all made sense to me. I was like, "Oh shit!" And then I of course got the message. "Oh, we're on Welcome to Rockville. It's part of the tour. It's part of the tour." So all the bands are playing. You know, to my knowledge, Parkway Drive and Black Dahlia. We're all going and doing Welcome to Rockville. I think we're in Atlanta the day before, and then a day off after. So yeah, May, and into June, I think, and then we'll see. We're planning some stuff for beyond that too, as well, for the summertime. So we got some anniversaries coming up of some of our this year, some of our important records, some milestone anniversaries. Maybe you guys can do the math and figure that out for something that we might have up our sleeve, and just try to make it work. Just try to make it work. Hopefully, this is the end of all this Omicron, and
right. Yeah, no kidding on that one. Well, in any event, if Hatebreed is coming to a city near you, you definitely need to go, because they absolutely fucking kill it live. So make sure you go out there and support. And Frank, as always, man, thanks for joining us here on Aftershocks.
Thanks, Frank.
No, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, the travel to the shows. I mean, it's a fun bill. You got Stick to Your Guns, who are a headlining band in their own, and they're very energetic, and they always put on a good show. Black Dahlia Murder, of course, they've been killing it for years, and we've been touring with them for ages. And Parkway, who's just blown up, and hopefully they can get over here from Australia, and and it'll be a great tour. I mean, we have a world tour planned with them.
Wow.
The States, Australia, and Europe. So we'll see how it's all going to unfold here. So hopefully that this U.S. tour will go off without a hitch, and we can continue that. So we appreciate it. And in the meantime, you can check out the band on socials and check out the new video for Instinctive Slaughterlust if you haven't saw that yet, because it's got a lot of cool footage of the Megadeth tour that if any of you weren't able to make it out to that. So
very cool.